Hey YouTube, I'm just sitting here with baby. Hey Amelia, she's just sitting here with me. She's asleep. So I figured now's a good time to tell you guys about my labor and delivery story. It was January. So Monday, I had the non-stress test because I was 40 weeks. My doctor thought, okay, well, if I go over, they want to make sure nothing's wrong. So they had me scheduled for two non-stress tests. So one was supposed to be Monday the 8th, and then that Thursday was supposed to be the second one, as well as an ultrasound to see how she's positioned. So Monday I went in, me and Chris went in for my non-stress test. It was at 6 o'clock at night. They have you strapped, your belly strapped, twice, one for the contractions and one for your baby's heartbeat. And they told me to drink a lot of water. So I drank a lot of water. It was like, I don't know how much water it was. I want to say 32 ounces. She wanted me to finish that before she came back. That's what she said. So it was ice water, so I tried to chug it. So I got halfway done, got really nauseous, threw it up. Uh-oh. I'm too loud for her. When I get really loud, she covers her ears. Like she don't want to hear me. So yeah, I went in and then so I started throwing up, and then we went down to that was second. The first was the ultrasound. They said her head was in the right position. Her head was just slightly turned, but she was still down, head down, and they found her heartbeat. They couldn't get an accurate reading on her weight because of the way her head was positioned, but they were estimating that she was going to be between 6 and 7 pounds. But yeah, so then I went upstairs. That's when I got the non-stress test done. I'm tired. And got the non-stress test done, and then started throwing up. Then I went home. By then my contractions was happening often. It wasn't back pain anymore, which is regular contractions. They were happening every 8 to 10 minutes. Tuesday come, the next day, and I had my doctor's appointment, and I was telling her that my mucus plug, I lost it, and when should I go to the hospital, because I've been having these contractions that's 8 to 10 minutes apart for the past week. And she's like, well, you can go in. If it's 8 to 10 minutes apart, go in. If it's consistent, go in. Because mine, it wasn't like they tell you to go in when your contractions are like 3 minutes apart, 4 minutes apart, and steady, consistent. Mine wasn't like that. At the very, very beginning it was, when I first went to the hospital. I'll put a link up there so you guys can see it. But this time around, it was only 8 to 10 minutes, consistently, but 8 to 10 minutes apart for about a week. So I figured, can't go to the hospital because it's not 3 to 4, like she said. So, she's like, yes, just go to the hospital. If you need to, just go in. I was like, okay, and I was like, well, maybe I can just wait out, see if I can last. But on the ride home, I was like, no, just go into the hospital, because she said I can go in 8 to 10 minutes apart, and the contractions were steady, and it was hurting, and I couldn't get any rest. So we went in to the hospital. They had me hooked up to the monitors, and they put an IV in, gave me fluids, because by then I was throwing it. That was Tuesday. Monday I started throwing up the one time with the non-stress test. But since then, between Monday and Tuesday, I threw up 5 times. And I didn't eat much and I didn't drink much because I didn't want to throw up. But I was throwing up. It was nasty. So I threw up 5 times between then. So they gave me fluids when I got to the hospital. And she said that when I got there, they did the tests and monitored the baby heart and everything. I was like, okay, look like we're going to admit you. My doctor wasn't there. He started the shift the next day in the morning at 8 a.m. I got there at 2. So I got there at 2 p.m. on Tuesday after my doctor's visit. And so we had a nurse. She checked us. At the doctor's visit, when she checked me, I want to say 2 centimeters dilated. I believe it was 2 centimeters dilated. If not, I'll correct it down here. I was 2 centimeters dilated. And then an hour passed, and that's when we got to the hospital. The nurse checked me. I was 3. And every hour until 6 o'clock, I dilated. So I was between 5 and 6 centimeters before my nurse left. And so you guys know how I told you guys how I wasn't going to get the epidural and how I didn't want to. It was a miscommunication. Like, I watched this documentary when I was younger. It's called The Business of Childbirth, and how in the United States they give you Pitocin, which is supposed to help your contractions. And the Pitocin causes more pain because you're having more contractions. And so you get the epidural. The epidural, which sometimes causes the baby's heart rate to drop. Not all the time, not every single case, but it does happen. Which also, because the baby's heart rate is dropping, which means the baby is under distress, which means you have to go to have an emergency C-section. And so the doctors get you in and out. This is what the documentary was saying. Get you in and out. C-section costs more money, so the hospital gets benefits for having more C-sections than having vaginal births. This is what the documentary was saying, right? So I asked the nurse, because she asked me if I want an epidural, and I was like, oh, how about this? You know, I heard about the epidural causes the baby's heart to be distressed. And she's like, no, that's just a myth. That doesn't happen. And I'm like, okay, they said it's a high risk of having an emergency C-section if you have an epidural. She's like, no, that's just, you know, people just say that. That's a myth. That's not true. I was like, okay. But I still, by then, I was like still not wanting to have the epidural because I was doing okay with my contractions. Even though they were coming closer and closer, we did this mindfulness technique where you focus on your breathing, right? It's more like, okay, relax mindfulness. Relax your eyebrows. Okay, now relax your shoulders during the contractions, right? So that way you're focusing on your muscles, different parts of your muscles instead of the pain. So that was working, and so the contractions didn't hurt that bad, and I was 5 to 6 centimeters dilated. And so she came back in, and she's like, okay, so the epidural doctor is here, because they was busy. She's like, the epidural doctor is here, so do you want an epidural? And I was like, no, she's like, okay, so he's here, so if you want to get one, get one. I was like, okay, yeah. No, I didn't say, okay, yeah. I said, yes. In my mind, it was, yes, I hear you. But she took it as, yes, you want it, which, understandable. So she ran and got the doctor. She's like, oh, you want it? I was like, oh, and she just left. And so he came in with all his equipment. And before this all happened, her heart, with every contraction, her heart rate would drop. Okay, so the heart rate peaks up a little bit when you're having a contraction, and it goes down a little bit, but goes back up after your contraction. It's like a dip like that, right? So for her, it will go up during the contractions, then dip, and takes a while to go back up. That's what was happening before the epidural. And so my nurse had me switch positions where I'm sitting up kind of like this, but my feet are touching each other, you know, kind of like Indian style, but not. And so she's like, okay, the baby's doing better. The baby's heart rate steady even during contractions. And so then I had the epidural, which then my nurse shift switched, and so I had the epidural, and then I had a new nurse, and she wanted me in a different position because, you know, with epidurals you have to have a different position. You can't be sitting up because they have to put a catheter in, and so I couldn't sit or anything like that. So the position I was in didn't work out, and for the epidural, so they had me on my side, and they put a catheter in, and I had to keep switching sides, and every time I had a contraction, her heart rate would drop, and every time it would stay down lower and lower and lower. So then the doctor was like, okay, well, we're gonna break your water. And this doctor was on the news for not being sensitive to pregnant women. But she was fine with me. But yeah, so she broke my water, and after a while there was I forgot the term. I probably put the term down at the bottom. She pooped inside inside. And so they was like, okay, well, she's really under distress. So the nurse ran out to go tell the doctor. And by then I already had the epidural because, they have to switch me. And then, so they was like, okay, well, the baby, at the last point of the baby's heart rate dropping, it's supposed to be 175. That was her steady heartbeat. But the last time which they thought I had to get a rush to C-section was her heart rate dropped to 67 and stayed down. It took a long time for it to come back up. And so by then, they was like, okay, we got to get you ready. We got to have an emergency C-section because we want to make sure both of you guys are safe. But I couldn't hear what else they were saying because I just thought, this is my worst nightmare happening. I still get emotional by it because it's kind of like, well, her heart rate was doing better before the epidural. And I knew I didn't want it. So it kind of like made it worse because I was like, okay, maybe this is my fault that this is happening. Because I already knew that having epidural could make her heart rate decrease. And I wasn't having that much pain, so I could have just corrected the doctor and said, no, I don't want it. Even if he came in, I could have been like, no, I don't want it. It's fine. Excuse me. So I could have just spoke up, but I didn't. And so I felt like, okay, well, this is my fault because I already knew better that an epidural would drop the heart rate. And anyway, so they got us ready. Chris got his outfit on. The hat, the clothes, for the operation room. They put my hat on, and by then I was laying there just praying, hoping everything would be okay. And then so they rushed me in. They have you and he had to stay in the room because they had to get me ready, so he had to stay back in the room. And they have your arms out like this on the table when you're getting ready for the operation. Both of your arms out. It's kind of like a cross, right? So I was trying to make jokes like, oh, I'm getting sacrificed because my hands was out like a cross, like Jesus. And then the nurse was like, yes, you're getting sacrificed for your baby. And I was like, I was making a joke because Jesus died. Am I going to die? Because that was like one of my fears. And I was like, that was terrible for her to say. I don't know. Maybe she was just trying to lighten the mood. But I was already stressed. So I started crying because I was like, okay, well, I didn't want this to happen, but I was still trying to be strong, but I didn't want it to happen. And then so he was like, it's not going to feel any pain. It's going to feel like a pinch, not even a pinch. And so he's like, you're going to numb this area because you already have the epidural. So they numbed me more. And then they was like, okay, well, they're going to start. And so I started crying and because I was by myself and it was super scary, and I was like, okay, where's Chris? Are you guys going to get Chris? Where's Chris? And then it's like, oh yeah, let's go get Chris. And I was like, they forgot about Chris. And so the nurse came. She's like, oh, we're going to get him right now. And so he has another part to his side of the story. I just knew he wasn't there and they forgot. And I saw him, and then later he came in, sit down, and I was bawling. I was like, I'm scared. I was scared because it was a major operation and I was by myself and it was like, it's one of the things I dreaded. I really, really didn't want it to happen. And my first, and I'm not the type that was like, okay, I'm going to plan a C-section. No, I could have done it. I could have done vaginal birth. That's the upsetting part. And it didn't have to go like it did. And so, Chris was like, do you hear the baby cry? And I was like, no, I don't. And I just I couldn't hear her. And the drugs probably. And I was like, I'm scared. But apparently he said I was scared once. But then afterwards I said I was hurting. And then I just remember the anesthesiast was just like, oh, we can't have that. And he gave me more drugs. And then the ceiling started moving. And then I was out. Don't remember. Then they sent me to the recovery room where they did the skin to skin. And then the breastfeeding. And yeah, they just had her on me and it was just, I can't really remember much of it because they upped the drugs so much. Then I went to the postpartum room where they gave me the strong drugs. Like, I'm a lightweight. I don't do drugs at all. And I barely take ibuprofen. And they gave me Narco. and it made me super sleepy and hallucinating. Like, I thought one of my friends had a tattoo which she never had. I was like, oh, where'd you get that new tattoo? She's like, what tattoo? And then it disappeared. And it was hard to hold her, breastfeed, and my cat's up here. Hi, Figgy. And so it was just really difficult. And then after, I had water retention. So everything was swollen. My legs, like you saw in the video, my legs were swollen. My face was swollen. I had water on my ankles, on my feet. And so I was there from Tuesday till Sunday. I stayed to make sure everything was okay. But that's my labor and delivery story. It's not something that I look upon like too fondly, because it wasn't something I ever dreamed of and wanted to happen. It was just, I'm coping with it because we have her. She's here. Baby girl's here. But her arrival wasn't something ideal, something I wanted. Can't get everything you want, right? But yes, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them down below. If you guys want to know how my hospital stay was, just leave a comment down below. I do a video about how my hospital stay was, or what was in my hospital bag, or anything like that. I'll respond back as soon as possible. I'll make a video about it. You know, I may do one anyway. Who knows? But yeah, so thank you guys for watching. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys, and all the new people that's here. Hi, welcome. And all the old ride or dies, nice seeing you back. On that note, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Oh yeah, when she was born, she weighed 5 pounds 14 ounces and was 20.5 inches long. She was a tiny baby. She's still tiny. She hasn't gained that much, but I'll update you guys about that later.